The bus came to a stop with a loud hiss. Dust clouds rose from the ground as the doors opened. Marcus Chen stepped down onto the hot pavement, his black duffel bag heavy on his shoulder. The sun was already beating down hard at 9 in the morning. He looked up at the sign that read Fort Bradley United States Army Training Center, 22 years old and ready to start over. That's what Marcus told himself as he walked toward the main gate. The guards checked his papers and waved him through. His boots made soft sounds on the concrete as he followed the yellow line painted on the ground. Other new recruits walked the same path, some talking loudly, others quiet like him. Marcus had thick black hair and dark eyes that seemed to hold secrets. He was not the tallest guy in the group, but he was strong from 4 years of construction work. His hands were rough and calloused. These hands had built houses, fixed roofs, and helped support his mother after his father died. Now, they would learn to hold a rifle and serve his country. The processing building was full of noise and confusion. Young men and women filled out forms, got their hair cut, and received their uniforms. Marcus stood in line after line, answering questions and getting poked by needles for his shots. He kept to himself, watching the others around him. Most of the new recruits looked like they had just finished high school. They talked about video games, girls they left behind, and how tough they thought they were. Marcus listened, but did not join in. He had seen real life already. He had worked real jobs and paid real bills. This felt different today. Next, called the uniform clerk. Marcus stepped forward and gave his sizes. The clerk handed him a stack of green clothes, underwear, socks, and boots. Everything smelled new and stiff. "Where do I change?" Marcus asked. "Locker room is down the hall," the clerk said without looking up. "Hurry up. You got 20 minutes before formation." Marcus found the locker room buzzing with activity. New recruits were stripping off their civilian clothes and putting on their army gear. Some guys walked around in just their underwear, laughing and joking. Others stood in front of mirrors, looking at themselves in uniform for the first time. Marcus found an empty corner and started to change. He kept his back to the wall and worked quickly. When he pulled off his t-shirt, he made sure no one was looking. The tattoo on his back was large and detailed. It told a story he was not ready to share. "Hey, new guy," called a voice behind him. Marcus quickly pulled on his army t-shirt and turned around. A tall kid with red hair and freckles was grinning at him. "I'm Jake Morrison from Texas. You look like you know what you're doing." "Marcus," he replied simply, tucking in his shirt. "First time in the army?" Jake asked. Marcus nodded. It was not exactly a lie. This was his first time at basic training, even though he had worn a uniform before. But that was a different time, different place, and a different version of himself. "Me too," Jake said. "I'm scared as hell, but don't tell anyone." He laughed nervously. "My dad was a Marine. He says army guys are soft." Marcus just smiled and finished getting dressed. He had learned that talking too much could lead to questions he did not want to answer. The drill sergeant appeared in the doorway like a storm cloud. He was a big man with a shaved head and arms like tree trunks. His voice filled the room when he spoke. "Listen up, ladies. I am Drill Sergeant Thompson. For the next 16 weeks, I own you. You will eat when I say eat, sleep when I say sleep, and breathe when I say breathe." Anyone got a problem with that? Nobody answered. The room had gone completely quiet. "I can't hear you," he shouted. "No, Drill Sergeant." Everyone yelled back. "Pathetic," he muttered. "Get your stuff and follow me. Time to meet your new home." They marched across the base to a long, low building. Inside were rows of bunk beds with thin mattresses and gray blankets. Each recruit was assigned a bed and a small metal locker. Marcus got a bottom bunk near the middle of the room. "This is where you will sleep, dream, and probably cry," Drill Sergeant Thompson announced. "Lights out at 2100 hours. Wake up at 0500 hours. Anyone caught talking after lights out gets to do push-ups until I get tired of watching." Marcus put his few personal items in his locker. A photo of his mother, his wallet with $43, a small notebook and pen. Everything else was army property now. The guy in the bunk above him dropped down to introduce himself. He was short and stocky with a thick Chicago accent. "Tony." Ricci, he said, holding out his hand. This place smells like disinfectant and fear. Marcus shook his hand. Marcus Chen, you seem pretty calm about all this, Tony observed. Most of us are freaking out inside. Just taking it one day at a time, Marcus replied. As the day went on, Marcus watched his fellow recruits. Some were natural leaders who started organizing groups. Others were followers who looked for someone to guide them. A few were troublemakers who would probably wash out before graduation. Marcus fit into none of these groups. He followed orders perfectly, kept his area clean, and did not cause problems. But he also did not make friends easily. When the others gathered to share stories about home, he found reasons to be elsewhere. During dinner in the mess hall, he sat with Jake and Tony, but mostly listened while they talked. The food was better than he expected. Meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, and chocolate cake. Growing up poor had taught him to appreciate any good meal. So what did you do before this? Tony asked between bites. Construction work, Marcus answered. That explains the muscles, Jake said. I worked at a grocery store. Not exactly tough guy training. Construction is hard work, Tony agreed. My uncle does roofing. Says it nearly killed him every summer. Marcus nodded but did not elaborate. He had done roofing, plumbing, electrical work, and anything else that paid well. His mother needed medicine that insurance did not cover. Every dollar mattered. After dinner, they had an hour of free time before lights out. Some guys played cards. Others wrote letters home. A few tried to call family on the payphone, but the line was always long. Marcus used the time to organize his locker and prepare his uniform for the next day. Everything had to be perfect. Boots polished, clothes pressed, bed made tight enough to bounce a quarter. These details mattered in the army. When lights went out, the barracks grew quiet except for nervous whispers and the sound of someone crying softly into his pillow. Marcus lay on his back, staring at the springs of the bunk. Above him, tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to keep his secrets hidden. He thought about the tattoo on his back and the memories it carried. The other recruits would probably laugh if they knew the truth. They saw him as just another quiet guy trying to make it through basic training. They had no idea what he had already been through, what he had seen, or why he really came back to the army. Sleep came slowly in the unfamiliar place. But Marcus had learned to sleep anywhere, under any conditions. It was just another skill that would serve him well in the days to come. 3 weeks into basic training, Marcus had settled into a routine. Wake up at 5 in the morning, make his bed perfectly, brush his teeth, and get ready for another day of push-ups, running, and learning to be a soldier. He was good at all of it, maybe too good. The other recruits started to notice things about Marcus that seemed strange. During physical training, when everyone else stripped down to just shorts and boots because of the heat, Marcus kept his t-shirt on. When they did exercises that required removing shirts, he always found a way to stay covered. Hey Marcus, called Jake one morning as they got ready for a run. Aren't you hot in that shirt? It's already 80 degrees out. Marcus pulled on his running shoes and shrugged. I'm fine, dude. You're gonna pass out from heat stroke, Tony said from his bunk. Just take the shirt off like everyone else. I said I'm fine, Marcus repeated, his voice a little sharper. The guys exchanged looks, but did not push it. Not yet. During the run, Marcus kept up with the best runners despite wearing more clothes than anyone else. Sweat poured down his face, but he never complained. Drill Sergeant Thompson noticed this and called him out. Chen, you training for the North Pole or something? Take that shirt off before you overheat. I'm good, Drill Sergeant, Marcus replied, still running. That wasn't a suggestion, soldier. Marcus felt trapped. 20 pairs of eyes were watching him. Can I keep it on, Drill Sergeant? I have a skin condition. Thompson studied him for a moment, then shrugged. Fine, but if you pass out, you're doing extra duty for a week. The run continued, but now everyone was curious about Marcus's supposed skin condition. Whispers started during chow time and continued during downtime. What kind of skin condition? Jake wondered out loud. Maybe he's got really bad acne on his back, suggested Tony. Or scars from an accident, added another recruit named Davis. I bet it's something embarrassing, said Rodriguez, a sergeant who had been held back from an earlier class. He was older than the rest, and acted like he knew everything. Probably. Got some girl's name tattooed on him, and now he's ashamed. This got everyone laughing. Rodriguez fed off the attention and kept going. Yeah, probably says, "I love Jennifer" in big pink letters with hearts all around it, he said in a fake sweet voice. Marcus heard all of this, but pretended not to. He focused on his food and tried to block out their voices. But it was hard to ignore when they were sitting right next to him. The teasing got worse in the shower room. The facility had multiple shower heads along the walls, with no privacy dividers. Most guys just walked in, washed up, and walked out without thinking about it. But Marcus developed a system. He would wait until everyone else was done, then quickly shower with his back to the wall. If someone came in while he was there, he would turn away or find an excuse to leave. This behavior made him even more of a target. "There goes the mystery man," Rodriguez would announce whenever Marcus left the showers early. Protecting his precious secret. "Maybe he's got mommy's boy written across his shoulders," Davis added, causing more laughter. The joke spread beyond their immediate group. Other platoons heard about the guy who was too modest to shower normally. Soon Marcus was dealing with comments from recruits he had never even met. "Hey, shy guy," someone would call out during formations. "When you gonna show us what you're hiding?" Marcus kept his mouth shut and his temper under control. He had learned long ago that fighting back just made things worse. He focused on being the best soldier he could be in every other way. His shooting scores were perfect. His physical fitness tests were among the highest in the company. He knew every regulation by heart and never made mistakes during inspections. But none of that mattered to the guys making jokes about him. The harassment reached a new level during a particularly hot day of field training. They were learning combat techniques while crawling through dirt and mud. Everyone was filthy and sweating heavily. "Shirt off, everyone," commanded Drill Sergeant Thompson. "Too hot for full gear today." One by one, the recruits pulled off their sweat-soaked t-shirts. Marcus hesitated, looking around for an escape route that did not exist. "Problem, Chen?" Thompson asked. "No, Drill Sergeant." "Then strip that shirt off like everyone else." Marcus's hands went to the bottom of his shirt, then stopped. He could feel dozens of eyes on him, waiting to see what he would do. I'd rather keep it on, Drill Sergeant." Thompson's face turned red. "This is the army, not summer camp. When I give an order, you follow it." "Yes, Drill Sergeant, but could I please? No exceptions," Thompson shouted. "Either take off that shirt or drop and give me 50 push-ups right now." Marcus chose the push-ups. He hit the ground and started counting off while the other recruits watched. This just added more fuel to the fire of their curiosity. 50 push-ups in this heat with the shirt on, Rodriguez muttered to the others. "This guy's definitely hiding something big." The speculation grew wilder every day. Some thought Marcus had gang tattoos he was ashamed of. Others believed he had surgical scars from some terrible accident. A few wondered if he had burn marks or birth defects. "I heard his whole back is covered in pimples," one recruit whispered during mail call. "My cousin said some people get these weird rashes that never go away," another added. "Or maybe he's got someone's name tattooed in a place he can't reach to get it removed," Rodriguez suggested with a grin. Marcus heard every word but continued sorting through his mail. His mother had sent him a letter and a small package of cookies. The cookies were broken into crumbs during shipping, but he ate them anyway. They tasted like home. The worst part was not the jokes themselves, but how they affected his relationships with the other recruits. Guys who might have been friends started keeping their distance. They were afraid that being associated with the weird quiet guy would make them targets too. Jake still talked to him sometimes, but not as much as before. Tony became more careful about what he said around Marcus. Even the guys who did not participate in the teasing directly seemed uncomfortable around him. Marcus found himself eating alone more often. During free time, he would read or write letters while the others played cards or watched television. He became more isolated each day, which only made him seem more mysterious to everyone else. The pressure was building, and Marcus could feel it. Every day brought new jokes, new stares, and new whispers behind his back. He started having trouble sleeping, lying awake at night listening to the sounds of other recruits talking quietly about him. I bet he was in jail before this, he heard someone whisper one night. Maybe he's got prison tattoos he doesn't want anyone to see, came the reply. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to think about something else. He thought about his mother back home, working her second job at the diner to pay the bills. He thought about why he had joined the army again, and whether it was worth going through all this just to serve his country. But he also thought about the real reason he kept his shirt on. And he knew that if these guys ever saw what was really on his back, their jokes would stop immediately. The problem was, he was not sure if that would make things better or worse. The tattoo told a story that would change everything. But Marcus was not ready to tell that story yet. So he endured the mockery, the stares, and the isolation, hoping that somehow he could make it through basic training without having to reveal the truth about who he really was and what he had already sacrificed for his country. The desert training exercise was supposed to last 3 days. It was week 10 of basic training, and the heat was getting worse every day. The temperature hit 105 degrees by noon, and there was no shade anywhere on the practice range. Marcus's platoon had been crawling through sand and dirt since sunrise, learning combat maneuvers with full gear. His uniform was soaked with sweat, and sand had gotten into every piece of equipment he carried. But he kept going while other recruits started dropping out from heat exhaustion. "Water break," shouted Drill Sergeant Thompson. 5 minutes, then. "We're back at it." The recruits collapsed in whatever shade they could find. Most of them immediately pulled off their shirts and poured water over their heads to cool down. The medic walked around checking on everyone, looking for signs of heat stroke. Marcus sat alone under a small bush, drinking water slowly and trying to stay cool without removing his shirt. The wet fabric stuck to his skin like a second layer, making everything worse. His head was pounding, and he felt dizzy. "Dude, just take the shirt off," Jake said, sitting down next to him. "You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm fine," Marcus replied, but his voice was weak. "No, you're not fine," Jake insisted. "You're being stupid. This is dangerous." Rodriguez overheard this and saw an opportunity to stir up more trouble. He walked over with several other recruits following behind him, still playing the mysterious man. "Chen," Rodriguez said loudly, "what's it gonna take for you to act normal like everyone else?" "Leave him alone," Jake said, but his voice was not very strong. "Oh, but tired of this game," Rodriguez continued. "We're all suffering in this heat, and he's making it worse for himself because he's got some stupid secret. It's affecting the whole team." This was not exactly true, but it sounded good enough to get other people nodding in agreement. Several recruits gathered around to watch what would happen next. "Maybe it's time we found out what he's hiding," suggested Davis, who was always eager to follow Rodriguez's lead. "Yeah," agreed another recruit. "If it's just a tattoo or some scars, what's the big deal? We've all got something." Marcus felt the circle of soldiers closing in around him. His vision was getting blurry from the heat, and he was having trouble thinking clearly. The water in his canteen was almost gone, and his head felt like it was going to explode. "I don't want any trouble," Marcus said quietly. "Then stop being such a weirdo," Rodriguez shot back. "Just show us what's under that shirt and we'll leave." "You alone?" "I can't do that." "Why not? What's so terrible that you can't let your own teammates see it?" The argument was getting louder and attracting more attention. Even recruits from other platoons were starting to gather around to see what was happening. Someone pulled out a phone to record whatever was about to happen. Drill Sergeant Thompson heard the commotion and marched over to investigate. His face was red from the heat and anger. "What's all this noise about?" he demanded. "Chen won't follow basic hygiene procedures," Drill Sergeant Rodriguez said, trying to sound official. "He's putting the whole unit at risk by not cooling down properly." Thompson looked at Marcus, who was clearly suffering from the heat, but still fully dressed. The other recruits were watching eagerly, hoping their drill sergeant would force the issue. "Chen, get up," Thompson ordered. Marcus struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. The world seemed to spin around him, and he had to grab the bush for support. "You look like hell, soldier. When's the last time you drank water?" "Just now," Drill sergeant, not enough. Medic, Thompson called out. Get over here and check this man out. The medic jogged over with his medical bag. He was an older soldier who had seen plenty of heat casualties during his career. He took one look at Marcus and shook his head. He's dehydrated and overheating, the medic announced. Needs to get out of this sun immediately. Then get him cooled down, Thompson ordered. Do whatever you have to do. The medic started his examination, checking Marcus's pulse and temperature. His skin was hot and dry, which were bad signs in this kind of heat. I need to check his core temperature, the medic said, and he needs to get these wet clothes off right now. The fabric is trapping heat against his body. This was the moment Marcus had been dreading for months. He looked around at all the faces staring at him. Rodriguez was grinning, expecting to finally get his answer. Jake looked worried but curious. Even Drill Sergeant Thompson was waiting to see what would happen. I can't take my shirt off, Marcus said weakly. Son, this is a medical emergency, the medic replied firmly. Heat stroke can kill you. I don't care what you're embarrassed about. You don't understand. Chen, Thompson's voice cut through everything else. This is a direct order from a medical professional. Strip that shirt off right now, or I'll have 3 soldiers hold you down while the medic cuts it off. Marcus felt trapped. His knees were shaking, and black spots were starting to appear in his vision. The heat was winning, and he was running out of options. Around him, more soldiers had gathered to watch the show. Some had their phones out, ready to record whatever was about to be revealed. Please, Marcus whispered, but nobody was listening anymore. 5 seconds, Chen, Thompson said. Then we do this the hard way. Marcus's hands went to the bottom of his soaked t-shirt. His fingers were trembling, not just from the heat, but from fear. He had kept this secret for 10 weeks, through all the jokes and harassment. Now, it was about to be exposed to everyone. 4, 3, 2, wait. Marcus called out desperately. Can we do this somewhere private? No more delays, Thompson replied. 1. Marcus closed his eyes and began to pull his shirt up slowly. The wet fabric peeled away from his skin like tape being removed from a wound. He could hear the crowd getting quiet as they prepared to finally see what he had been hiding. The shirt came up over his stomach, then his chest. A few more inches and his secret would be visible to everyone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold on to the fabric. Just do it fast, Jake whispered from somewhere behind him. Marcus took a deep breath and yanked the shirt over his head in one quick motion. For a moment, he stood there with his eyes closed, waiting for the laughter and jokes to begin. But instead, there was complete silence. Slowly, he opened his eyes and looked around at the faces staring at him. Nobody was laughing anymore. Rodriguez's grin had disappeared completely. Even Thompson looked shocked by what he was seeing. The tattoo on Marcus's back was not what anyone had expected. It was not a girlfriend's name or gang symbols or anything embarrassing. It was something much more serious, much more meaningful, and much more painful than any of them could have imagined. But before anyone could say anything, Marcus's knees buckled and he collapsed onto the hot sand. The heat and stress had finally overcome him. The medic rushed forward to help him, but it was too late to put the shirt back on. His secret was out, and everything was about to change. The phones that had been ready to record a funny moment were now capturing something completely different. The soldiers who had been expecting entertainment were now seeing a story they were not prepared for. And Marcus, who had fought so hard to keep his past hidden, was unconscious and unable to control what happened next. The desert sun beat down on everyone as they stared at the truth that had been revealed on Marcus's back. In just a few seconds, their understanding of who he was and why he had been so secretive had been completely turned upside down. The silence in the desert was broken only by the sound of Marcus hitting the sand. For several seconds, nobody moved. 23 soldiers and 1 drill sergeant stood frozen, staring at the unconscious man and the story written across his back. The tattoo was enormous, covering Marcus's entire back from his shoulders to his waist. But it was not crude or simple like the tattoos some soldiers got on weekend passes. This was the work of a master artist, with fine details and perfect shading that must have taken months to complete. The center was a military helicopter, drawn so realistically, it seemed like it might fly off his skin. The aircraft was surrounded by flames and smoke, with bullet holes visible in its side. Below the helicopter, a group of soldiers were carrying wounded men to safety, their faces showing determination and fear, but it was the words that made everyone understand they had been completely wrong about Marcus Chen. Across the top, in elegant script lettering, were the words Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Below that were 3 sets of dates spanning 4 years, marking combat deployments to Afghanistan. On the left side was a detailed purple heart medal with the date it was awarded. On the right side was a bronze star with a V for valor, and around the helicopter, like a memorial wall, were 17 names. 17 soldiers who had not made it home. Each name was written in beautiful calligraphy, with birth and death dates underneath. These were not random names from a book or movie. These were real people who had lived and died together. Rodriguez was the first to find his voice, but it came out as barely a whisper. "Holy shit," he breathed. Jake dropped to his knees beside Marcus and started checking his pulse, just like the medic had taught them in first aid training. "He's breathing," Jake announced, "but his pulse is really fast." The medic snapped out of his shock and rushed forward with his equipment. "Everyone back up," he ordered. "Give him some air." He started in 4 and began cooling Marcus down with wet towels, but nobody wanted to back up. They were all transfixed by what they were seeing. Davis pulled out his phone and started taking pictures before Thompson slapped it out of his hands. "Put that away," Thompson barked. "This is not a tourist attraction." "But Drill Sergeant," Davis stammered, "do you see what's on his back? Do you know what this means?" Thompson had served for 18 years and recognized every symbol on Marcus's back. The unit insignia, the deployment dates, the medals, it all told a story of a soldier who had seen more combat than most people could imagine. "I see it," Thompson said quietly. "Now shut up and let the medic work." As the medic worked to bring Marcus's body temperature down, the other soldiers began to piece together what they were looking at. Tony, who had been Marcus's bunkmate for 10 weeks, was the first to really understand. "The dates," Tony said, pointing at the tattoo. "Look at the deployment dates. The last one ended 4 years ago, but he's here in basic training with us. So he's been in the army before," Jake said. "Why didn't he tell us?" Rodriguez, who had been the loudest voice mocking Marcus, was staring at the names around the helicopter. One of them was SSG Rodriguez. Miguel, no relation to him, but the same last name made it feel personal. "These are dead soldiers," Rodriguez said, his voice shaking. "These are guys who died in combat. Look at the dates, some of them died on the same day." The medic was listening to this conversation while he worked. He had seen plenty of combat veterans during his career, and he recognized the signs he had missed in Marcus. "This is a memorial tattoo," the medic explained without looking up from his patient. "Soldiers get them to honor fallen comrades, but to have 17 names. Jesus Christ, what did this kid go through?" Drill Sergeant Thompson was studying the details more carefully now. The unit Marcus had served with was elite rangers, were some of the toughest soldiers in the army. The medals indicated he had been decorated for bravery under fire. The number of deployment dates showed he had spent years in combat zones. "Rangers," Thompson muttered to himself. This boy was a ranger. Word started spreading quickly through the training area. Soldiers from other platoons began gathering around to see what the commotion was about. When they saw Marcus's back, they fell silent just like the first group had. "Is he okay?" asked a recruit from another company who had jogged over to investigate. "He collapsed from heat exhaustion," Jake explained. "But look at his back. Look at what we've been making fun of for 2 months." The new arrivals went through the same process of shock and understanding. They saw the helicopter, read the names, recognized the medals, and realized they were looking at a combat veteran who had endured things they could not imagine. "Why is he in basic training if he's already been a soldier?" someone asked. "Maybe he got out and came back," suggested another voice. "Or maybe he's starting over with a clean record," added a third recruit. The medic finally got Marcus conscious again. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked around in confusion at all the faces staring down at him. It took him a moment to remember where he was and what had happened. Then he remembered his shirt was off. Marcus tried to sit up quickly, but the medic pushed him back down. "Easy there, soldier. You're still recovering. Don't try to move too fast." "My shirt," Marcus said weakly. "Where's my shirt?" Jake picked up the wet, sandy t-shirt and held it out to him. "It's right here, but the medic says you need to stay cool for a while longer." Marcus looked around at all the faces surrounding him. Nobody was laughing now. Nobody was making jokes or taking pictures. They were all looking at him with expressions he had never seen before: respect, awe, and something that might have been shame. "How long was I out?" Marcus asked. "About 10 minutes, the medic replied. "Your body temperature was dangerously high. We're going to have to take you back to the base clinic for observation. Can I put my shirt back on first?" The medic looked at his thermometer reading and nodded. "Temperature's coming down. Go ahead, but take it slow." Jake helped Marcus sit up and carefully pulled the shirt over his head. As the fabric covered the tattoo, it felt like a curtain was being drawn over a powerful performance. But everyone had already seen what they needed to see. Rodriguez stepped forward, looking uncomfortable and ashamed. "Marcus, I'm sorry. Man, I had no idea. We all had no idea." Marcus looked up at him with tired eyes. "It's okay. You didn't know." "No, it's not okay," Rodriguez insisted. "We were acting like idiots, making jokes about things we didn't understand." Other voices joined in with apologies and questions, but Marcus was too exhausted to deal with all of it. He just wanted to get back to base, take a real shower, and try to figure out how his carefully guarded secret had become everyone's business. The medic helped him to his feet and started walking him toward the transport vehicle. As they moved through the crowd of soldiers, Marcus could hear whispers following behind them. 17 names, Purple Heart and Bronze Star. He was a ranger. 4 years of combat. His secret was out now, completely and permanently. There was no going back to being just another quiet recruit trying to get through basic training. Tomorrow, everyone on base would know who Marcus Chen really was and what he had sacrificed for his country. The question was whether that would make his life better or worse. Word traveled fast on military bases, especially when it involved something as shocking as what the recruits had discovered about Marcus Chen. By evening, the story had reached every barracks, mess hall, and office on Fort Bradley. A decorated Ranger veteran was hiding in basic training, and nobody knew why. Colonel James Harrison was finishing his daily paperwork when his aide knocked on his office door. Lieutenant Martinez entered with an unusual expression on his face. "Sir, we have a situation that requires your immediate attention," Martinez said, placing a folder on the colonel's desk. "What kind of situation?" Harrison asked, not looking up from his reports. "It involves a recruit in basic training, Marcus Chen. There was an incident during desert training today." Now, Harrison looked up. "What kind of incident? Heat casualty?" "Yes, sir, but that's not the main issue." Martinez opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. These were taken when the medic was treating Private Chen for heat exhaustion. Harrison looked at the photos and his face went completely pale. The images showed Marcus's tattoo in clear detail: the helicopter, the names, the unit insignia, and the medals. But it was one specific detail that made the colonel's hand start shaking. "Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 75th Rangers," Harrison read aloud in a whisper. "Yes, sir. Do you recognize the unit?" Harrison set down the photos and leaned back in his chair. His mind was racing back for years to a deployment in Afghanistan that still haunted his dreams. He had been a captain then, serving as a liaison officer with the Ranger Battalion. "Get me Chen's complete file," Harrison ordered. "Real name, social security number, everything. And I want him in my office first thing tomorrow morning." "Sir, there might be a problem with that. According to his enlistment records, Marcus Chen has no prior military service, but the tattoo clearly shows otherwise." Harrison studied the photos again, focusing on the faces of the soldiers depicted in the tattoo. One face looked familiar. but it was hard to be certain after 4 years and artistic interpretation. Run his fingerprints through the system, Harrison said. Cross-reference with all military personnel from that time period. And I want absolute discretion on this. Nobody talks about it outside this office. Yes, sir. Should I inform Drill Sergeant Thompson about the investigation? No, me handle this personally. Harrison picked up one of the photos and stared at it. Martinez, I think I know who this young man really is. The next morning, Marcus reported to the colonel's office as ordered. He had spent a sleepless night in the base clinic, where the medical staff treated him like a celebrity. Word about his tattoo had reached everyone, and he was getting more attention than he wanted. He knocked on the office door and waited for permission to enter. Come in, called a voice from inside. Marcus stepped into the office and immediately snapped to attention. Private Chen reporting as ordered, sir. Colonel Harrison looked up from his desk and studied Marcus's face carefully. The young man standing before him was thinner than he remembered, with shorter hair and different clothes, but the eyes were the same. At ease, Private, Harrison said softly. Please, have a seat. Marcus sat down in the chair across from the colonel's desk, trying to keep his expression neutral, but inside, he was terrified that his carefully constructed new identity was about to crumble. I understand you had some medical issues yesterday during training, Harrison began. Yes, sir. Heat exhaustion. I'm feeling much better now. Good to hear. Harrison opened a file folder and pulled out the photographs from the previous day. I also understand that your fellow recruits got quite a surprise when you were being treated. Marcus looked at the photos of his own back and felt his stomach drop. Yes, sir. That's quite an impressive tattoo, Private Chen. Very detailed work. Must have been expensive. Yes, sir. Harrison leaned forward in his chair. Tell me about Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. I don't know what you mean, sir. The unit depicted in your tattoo. The 17 names. The medals. Tell me how a young man with no military experience came to have such specific knowledge of a ranger unit. I researched it online, sir. I wanted to honor fallen soldiers. Harrison nodded slowly, then reached into his desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a group of soldiers in combat gear, standing next to a damaged helicopter. In Afghanistan. He placed it on the desk where Marcus could see it. Do you recognize this photo, Specialist Rodriguez? Marcus's carefully maintained composure cracked when he heard his real name. His eyes went wide, and he looked directly at the colonel for the first time. That's right, Harrison continued. Specialist Diego Rodriguez, also known as Dice to his fellow Rangers, wounded in action during Operation Red Wings 2, awarded the Purple Heart and Bronze Star for actions during the rescue of 6 wounded soldiers. Marcus Diego stared at the photograph. He recognized every face in it, including his own from 4 years ago. He also recognized the man in the captain's uniform standing at the edge of the group. Captain Harrison, Diego said quietly. You were our liaison officer. Colonel Harrison now, he replied with a slight smile. And you were the bravest young soldier ever had the privilege to serve with. Tears started forming in Diego's eyes as the memories came flooding back. The helicopter crash, the Taliban ambush, the desperate fight to save his wounded teammates, the explosion that gave him his Purple Heart and ended his military career. Why are you here, son? Harrison asked gently. Why are you going through basic training under a false name? Diego wiped his eyes and tried to find the words. After I got wounded, they discharged me for PTSD. I spent 2 years in therapy, working construction, trying to be a civilian. But I couldn't let go of the army. I couldn't let go of my brothers who didn't make it home. So you changed your name and re-enlisted. My mother's maiden name is Chen. I used her paperwork to create a new identity. I just wanted to serve again. Sir, I wanted to honor the guys we lost by being the best soldier I could be. Harrison nodded with understanding. And you thought hiding your service record would help you start fresh? I thought if people knew what I'd been through, they'd treat me differently. I wanted to earn respect based on who I am now, not who I used to be. But instead, you ended up being harassed by recruits who didn't understand why you were being secretive. Diego laughed bitterly. Yes, sir. They thought I was hiding something embarrassing. If they only knew the truth was the opposite. Harrison stood up and walked around his desk to sit in the chair next to Diego. Son, what you did in Afghanistan was extraordinary. You saved 6 lives at the cost of your own health and career. That tattoo on your back is not something to hide, it's something to be proud of. I am proud of it, sir. But I also didn't want it to define me. I wanted to prove I could be a good soldier again without riding on my past achievements. And you have proved that. Your drill sergeants tell me you're one of the best recruits they've ever trained. Your scores are perfect. Your attitude is exemplary. And your leadership potential is obvious. Diego looked surprised. They said that? They said that before they knew about your background. You've already proven who you are, Diego. Now it's time to stop hiding from it. Harrison returned to his desk and pulled out another folder. I'm going to make some phone calls and straighten out your paperwork. Your real identity will be restored, along with your proper rank and service record. You'll finish basic training if you want to, but as the decorated veteran you are. What about the other recruits? They all know now. Yes, they do. And from what I hear, their attitude towards you has changed completely. Rodriguez, who was leading the harassment, came to see me this morning. He wanted to apologize formally and ask if he could be transferred to another unit because he was so ashamed of how he treated you. Diego shook his head. That's not necessary, sir. He didn't know. That's exactly what Rodriguez said you would say. He also said he hoped he could earn your forgiveness and maybe learn something from your example. Harrison stood up and extended his hand to Diego. Welcome back to the Army, Specialist Rodriguez. Your country is honored to have you serve again. Diego stood and shook the colonel's hand, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders that he had been carrying for months. His secret was out, but instead of the shame and pity he had expected, he was finding respect and understanding. There's one more thing, Harrison said as Diego prepared to leave. I'm recommending you for officer candidate school after basic training. The Army needs leaders like you. Sir, I don't know if I'm ready for that responsibility. Son, you've already proven you're ready. You just need to believe it yourself. That afternoon, Diego returned to his barracks to find his fellow recruits waiting for him. Instead of the mockery and harassment he had endured for weeks, he was greeted with respectful nods and genuine apologies. Rodriguez stepped forward first. Diego, can I call you Diego? I owe you a massive apology. We all do. You don't owe me anything, Diego replied. You treated me like any other recruit, which is what I wanted. No, we treated you like crap because we didn't understand. But that's no excuse. Jake joined the conversation. We looked up your unit online. What happened to Alpha Company? I can't even imagine.